It's time for today's Face-Off on Fox Soul. Challengers Quanell X and Big Angry Adams, ready to go blow by blow on those hot topics. Face-Off on Fox Soul starts right now. Up first, a chilling leak showing a Christian school shooter's manifesto. The handwritten notes and documents show why police quickly called the Covenant school shooting calculated and planned. Up first, Charles Big Angry Adams.
You know, Quanell, after months and months of stonewalling, a far-right pundit, Steven Crowder, was able to obtain, possibly by paying a police officer, for copies of the first photos of the first 3 pages of trans man mass shooter Audrey Hale, who killed 3 9-year-old children and some adults at a Covenant Christian school in Nashville, Tennessee. That makes it very clear why both the law enforcement and government and the media tried to hide this from the American public. And I've talked about on my radio show very frequently how concerning it is that people are having to look to alternate news sources, to far right and far left news sources to get honest journalism, because of course the far right and the far left engage in widespread manipulation, and they're not about having honest conversations. But when someone like Alex Jones or Steven Crowder gets a nugget of truth, it then gives credence to everything else they're platforming. Why they are hiding this is because this trans man shooter, or trans man, it was a born a woman, trans man shooter Audrey Hale, used the language of the bastardized version of critical race theory that is very popular in America right now, that robs white people of their individualism, just like the racism of yesteryear. It says all white people are privileged, all white people are racist, all white people live a life free of harm and free of difficulties. And she used that language. She talked about these young white kids that drive daddy's Mustang. They were 9 years old. They're not driving anything. It was just hate-filled language. And then we see the parsing. We see the government trying to say, well, there's other pages, that this is out of context, right? There's no context about it in someone explaining why they're going to target and murder white children.
So what's your point?
Well, my point is they hit it, the media hit it, because we don't want to have honest. If it was African-American kids targeted by a racist, that manifesto would have been on the front page of every newspaper in America the next day, appropriately.
All right, now let's talk about that. Let's talk about that.
But when it pushed the other way,
wait a minute,
the media,
because,
you interrupted me.
No,
so
you went on for 10 minutes.
No, I didn't go on for 10
minutes. You went on for 10 minutes.
Check your watch. Oh, you don't have one on.
At the end
Go
of
buy
the
a
day,
watch
my
and
friend,
check your damn watch.
we all use cell phones now to tell what time it is.
Okay, well.
But now at the end of the day,
Well,
that's an old man, old school thing now.
Okay.
But Charles, this is a
That's
white
a Rolex.
person. This is a white person. See your white privilege. Look at you.
I bought this Rolex my damn self.
But going back to what I was saying,
jobs.
Charles, man, this is a white person who committed this shooting.
Right.
This was evil. This was wicked. And this sends a message to all Christians. Satan wants to harm, kill, and destroy your children and your families. This was a white person referring to other white children with white privilege. Let me finish with white privilege. Using racial epithets against white children when he or she, trans, is a white person themselves. This goes on to prove the point. She was not really racist. She was insane because she was racist against her own people. This was not a black or brown person who killed white children being racist in their manifesto. This was an insane white person talking about white people having white privilege, and she white her damn self.
Well, how do you check the box now, right? Because we all want to be oppressed now. We all want to check some box that gives us an excuse to go to the front of the line and push other people to the back of the line. Well, how do white people do it? Well, they check the trans box, they check the LGBT box, and then all of a sudden they're oppressed. Despite all the evidence of the warm embrace that America, I mean, you don't, you're a horrible homophobe and transphobe. But
you sound like it to me right now.
Most of us in America support people living their lives however they want to live it. The problem right now is that it is okay. It is okay in America to condemn white people holistically. It is okay in America.
But this is a white woman that's doing it, not a person of color.
But she's an oppressed trans person, right?
But wait a minute. So she even made disparaging remarks about the gay community.
Oh, she did. Well, because that's you see hatred between.
She crazy as hell. But she was just crazy.
But why wasn't it released? When we see every other manifesto released, when every chance they get to go across the front headline.
So what they gonna say? This was a mass shooting targeting white people by a white person?
Right. It was a mass shooting targeting white people because of this
So this was a racist white person being racist against white
every
people.
white person being privileged.
Okay, so
And
what you
that's
want
the
the media to
nonsense
say
of
is
the day.
this is a racist mass shooter being racist against white people, but yet the shooter's white themselves.
I think it's a bigoted person.
And she's gay.
who hates-
She was a trans woman making bad remarks, disparaging remarks about gay people.
She obviously hated Christians. She hated cisgendered white people. She hated kids. She hated people that had any sort of affluence or any sort of achievement in their life. She was bitter and angry. And what we have to do in America...
No, she was insane.
What we have to do in America is stop fueling that anger by force-feeding everybody the nonsense that all white people are racist.
But
or
you're
all white
attempting
people. Do you think
to
all white
take
people are privileged?
this woman's insanity to make a political point.
Well, they do it when
so
a,
what you're
when
trying
a
to
white
do is
racist does
politicize
it, they use
this
it.
woman's insanity.
When a white racist does something horrible, they use it to condemn
But
all white
Charles,
people generally.
this is a
Do you
white
think-
woman making crazy, insane, racist remarks about white
This
people.
is
She
a
white herself.
trans man.
And
don't
she's
misgender her.
and a member of the
Don't
gay community
misgender her.
making bad remarks about members of the
Okay.
gay community.
So do you think all white people are privileged?
Hell no.
Okay. Well, you've said it before.
But I will say this. All white people in America were put in a privileged position because of the evil that took place in America.
Okay.
But all
So,
white
hold on,
people
hold on.
have the complexion
Hold on.
for the protection
Hold on.
that we as black people do not have.
The poorest county in America is 97% white, and it's in Kentucky.
White Appalachia.
So it's a little bit further.
But
over.
Kentucky and
But, yeah. So do
and
you
West
think
Virginia all right there
those
together.
people that have lived in generational poverty for centuries, you think they're
They have
privileged?
no privilege.
Yeah, okay.
At
But
all.
see, the argument.
In fact, they are treated the same way poor black people are treated, even sometimes even worse by
But
their
see,
own people.
you'll agree with me that a lot of people disagree with that. I mean, you just said all white people wake up from birth with some sort of debt
with the
or some sort of
complexion
prejudice.
for the protection when it comes to law enforcement.
So in a city that is majority African American, that has African American government, police officers, police chief, is the white person still privileged? When I, as a young white kid that went to a
Let me say this.
Hold on. As a young white kid that went to a largely poor, largely black.
But we as
public
black
school,
people in America
was I
were
privileged?
always forced and taught under the threat of death and punishment to honor, respect, and protect white life.
Okay,
white people were never taught that about anybody.
Well, we'll agree to disagree.
Up next, holy moly, the special treat for people serving in the military. In round two, a titillating tale for military members who got a free show by strippers on the Vegas Strip. Up next, here's Quanell X.
Charles, I read about this story and I was shocked that a strip club in Las Vegas is honoring servicemen and women with giving them a free lap dance on the Vegas Strip. They can go into the club and get them a free lap dance because they're servicemen and women. And the club owner is saying they did that to honor and show respect to the servicemen and women of America. That's a con game. It's a disgrace and a shame. If they really wanted to help servicemen and women, why did not they say, we're going to take every dollar that every woman gets from the lap dances she gives, from shaking her boobs and shaking her gluteus maximus and all kind of strange different men, we're going to take every dollar we make tonight, and we're going to donate it to the Wounded Warriors Foundation. We're going to donate it to the fallen servicemen and women's widows. We're going to donate it to the children whose parents were killed in America's wars, and we're going to make sure it goes toward their college tuition. If you really want to help our servicemen and women and honor them, they could have did it in a much more constructive way than this. But to pull them in, and some of these men are absolutely crazy. Some of these women and men who come back from serving in Afghanistan, Iraq, Syria are absolutely crazy. Now you're going to bring them into a strip club, a bunch of them all at once, and let their titties and their behind shake and glow and go. Come on, man, this is madness.
Now, that was an interesting diatribe because you began with criticizing what is Crazy Horse 3's decision to give back to the military community, the mechanism by giving back. And then you finished by condemning people after foreign service and wars and their mental health condition and condemning them as crazy, right? At the end of the day, last segment we were talking about white privilege. Did you see the ad for the Veterans Day? because that young lady looks extremely privileged in a couple of departments.
Let me look at
And
this.
I will tell you, I thought you'd want to look at it. Even though you think white people are demons, I thought you'd want to look at her demonic body. Here's it is. Thank you, Crazy Horse 3. Thank you for every business that gives free meals, free drinks, free anything to veterans on Veterans Day. Thank you for any lawyer who gives free services. I've done pro bono work for the military community for decades. Thank you to every organization that is doing something, quite often, because most people don't do a damn thing. Most people assume that people should serve this country in any capacity, with any type of public service, and obviously the most significant service anyone could do for this country is to join the military and sacrifice their individual liberty, their individual freedoms to risk their lives for this country. And I'll tell you, I'm not a fan of foreign wars. I think America's involved in way too many of them, but I am a tremendous fan of those that serve in our armed forces, and I hope thousands of them.
You just want a damn lap dance.
I think thousands.
You just want a
of
lap
them.
dance.
You
just want a lap dance.
I was a policeman.
I'm looking at this woman right now. You want a lap dance.
I can afford to
especially
pay
if
for
it's free. But if it's free,
you calling me cheap?
If it's free,
you calling me cheap?
No, but you want a free lap dance.
Okay, I'm not a veteran.
Anyway, look, man, it's
I'm
wrong.
not a veteran.
If you really
Man,
want to
I
help our
hope
veterans,
1,000 go get them titties all over their face.
I hope your wife is listening.
I mean,
man,
I'm not
look,
doing
bottom
it.
line is, it is a shame that we go to this, we stoop to this level.
It's a shame that somebody
this
gets a free
low,
service.
That if we want to help them, Charles,
how do you
take
know
the money. Take the money. What?
How do you know that doesn't help
take
somebody?
the money, Charles.
It helps them relax.
Charles.
It helps them confront their anxieties, helps them chill out.
Charles.
Come on.
It's an illusion.
I mean, you don't like.
It's an illusion.
I get it.
It's an illusion, Charles.
You don't like boobies.
Charles, it's an illusion.
You don't like boobies, so it offends you that other people do. I don't know. What is it you like? What is it you want dangling all over you, Quanell? You don't like women?
And then you got that business right now. I'm sorry.
Okay.
See, now you're wrong.
Okay.
See, now look.
Right.
Can we get back to the show?
Crazy Horse 3.
Look.
Bravo.
The bottom line is, I like women, as a man should.
Okay. Our man can like whatever they want.
But I believe that this is exploiting and manipulating and taking advantage of our servicemen and women.
Why?
Because if they really want to help them, take the proceeds, the money that they make, and donate it to our servicemen and women if you really want to help them.
All the servicemen and women that go up there and get their free lap dances and have a great time, you think they're being manipulated?
Yes.
How?
Because that money that they make that night, they could donate that money to servicemen and women's
children
children
for free.
whose loved ones were
they
killed in
no
these
money.
wars.
They're doing it for free.
Charles, but they making money at night. Trust me.
Okay.
They're selling alcohol and everything else.
How
They're selling
about
behind
all the
closed doors.
businesses that
Charles,
aren't doing
it's wrong,
a damn
Charles.
thing on Veterans Day? How about all the business? Why is it
And so we celebrate them like this?
Yeah. I mean, what's wrong with it? They're in the business of flesh, right? So do you think strip clubs shouldn't exist at all, or strip clubs shouldn't be free for military veterans on Veterans Day? Which is?
I'm going to be very honest with you.
Yeah.
I wouldn't care if they close them all down.
Why?
Because I believe that it represents moral turpitude and that it represents a moral decline of a nation. And I also believe that it's nothing more than legal sex trafficking and sex exploitation of women.
But the truth is,
because what's the difference between a strip club owner and a pimp on a corner? There's no difference.
One of the things, okay, prostitution is illegal almost everywhere.
And they prostituting too.
There are some places in Nevada where it's legal,
too.
but in Las Vegas it's not. But the truth is that it is the illegality of prostitution that forces so many into the dark corners, allows for so many children to be exploited.
Agree with that.
And if you legalize prostitution and you license it and you governed it, it'd probably be better for everyone. It's not called the oldest profession because it's not the oldest profession.
So you want to legalize hoeing?
I want to legalize adult people.
So you want to legalize hoeing?
Adult people being able to do whatever they want with their bodies in any type of commerce, right? I don't want to legalize people being coerced, people being forced. But strip clubs,
if you legalize prostitution in Texas,
women
can you imagine what it would look like?
Strip clubs, women decide to go work there for whatever personal reason. Well, and you know, do I agree with it? Would I want anyone in my family doing it? No. But I don't think that my personal morality or my personal religious beliefs should be imposed on everybody else in the world.
And you don't believe that strip clubs are also nothing more than another avenue for sex trafficking?
No, I don't.
Absolutely,
I think
they
there
are.
are plenty of young women and young men
who are being manipulated and spiritually and psychologically exploited to reduce themselves to the lowest common denominator of humanity to make a dollar.
Who don't feel like they have any options. We don't have accessible education in this country. We don't have accessible health care in this country. And we don't have accessible
know this
So
to compliment it.
there are people that make tremendous amounts of money that allow them to do
And
things.
I've said this
It's
before.
like why I work.
What good does it do for a man or woman to gain the whole world and lose their soul? The Bible is right about
Okay,
that.
well, I'll tell you, like when I was a policeman, I worked nights. I went to school during the day. I didn't sleep. I would not have been able to go to school. Right? I wouldn't be the lawyer I am today unless I had that job that allowed me economically to do that.
So why you
And
work in a
that's-
strip club then?
Okay, well, I don't really have a body for
You
it,
sure
know
right.
what I'm
You
saying?
sure right. You
I
know, I'm
mean,
gonna see if
I
you're gonna
mean,
tell
I
the
don't know.
truth.
You got some titties
I want to see if
sitting
you're gonna
over
tell the
there.
truth.
But the
I'm
truth
ripped.
is,
I got guns, baby.
But the truth
I
is,
mean, I look like Schwarzenegger under here.
old Schwarzenegger. But the
This is
truth
wrong, Charles.
This is great, man.
This is manipulating and exploiting and taking advantage of our servicemen and women.
Servicemen and women in there getting bodied up and bodied down by women as beautiful as this one, and they all have a great Veterans Day.
That poor man, or woman go in there and have this waiting on them.
What does Drake talk about? The strip club buffet?
Up next, violence in America over the Israel-Hamas war. In our main event, tragedy in Southern California. A Jewish man dies after a fight with a pro-Palestinian protester. Here's Charles Big Angry Adams.
Across America, Quanell, there have been headlines that talk about a man died after a physical altercation, painting a portrait of a Jewish man just happening to die by accident after a physical altercation. In the first segment, we talked about how Steven Crowder and we've had Laura Loomer just exposed the judge in the Trump trial's wife as being incredibly biased on Twitter and anti-Trump, and it's pushing people to these right-wing news outlets that are clearly just manipulating them. But the mainstream media, legacy media, decides a story based on what boxes checked, what immutable characteristics. And if it was the converse, right? I mean, we all saw the horrifying story about the young Muslim kid, and the 6-year-old kid, and the mother who was stabbed. The 6-year-old kid was murdered by the landlord, the non-Jewish landlord that said a bunch of crazy stuff. That was platformed everywhere. Here, every article you read, it's, oh, there was a fight. This is an elderly man who was at a protest supporting Israel. Across the street, there was a protest, a counter-protest supporting Palestine. And there was a man with a bullhorn who left the Palestine protest and crossed the street and was harassing people with his bullhorn. That is a form of assault. You put a bullhorn in someone's face at a very loud volume, it's a form of assault. And when someone tried to hold his hands up and push the bullhorn out of their face, he thought that gave him the legal right to bash that man in the head. I've even seen stories talking about how this man, well, it wasn't the strike with the bullhorn that killed him, it was the fall to the ground. Well, the fall to the ground doesn't happen unless you busted his face open with the bullhorn. I've seen all the news articles talk about how the other member of the altercation stayed and called police and sought to get him help. None of it says murderer, right? And if you bash an old man in the head and he falls down and dies, it's murder. In California, just like in Texas, you can't argue self-defense if you're the instigator. And you're absolutely the instigator if you run across the street and get people's faces with a bullhorn. Apparently, the victim was being chased around by this scumbag. And my question for you, Quanell, is why does the media mischaracterize stuff based on ethnicity or religion? It's disgusting.
Charles, you accuse right-wing and left-wing media outlets like Alex Jones and others of manipulating and exploiting the audience to fit their narrative. Mainstream media does the same thing, man.
That's my point.
Let's not pretend like they don't. They do.
Okay.
Now, secondly, Charles, everything you said about what happened is an allegation. It's alleged, Charles. We've not seen no video, Charles.
Do you think, did you
And let me
read
say
the witness
this.
accounts,
Hold on
Quanell?
one second. But there are also witness accounts that were stating that they both were being aggressive toward each other.
Everyone agrees
Charles,
that the Palestinian
the man
supporter
should not
crossed
have
the street
died.
and got in his
The
face.
man should not have died. That elderly man, like everyone else, has a right to protest, has a right to speak his mind without being victimized by anyone.
You mean murder?
I have led more protests than any activist in this state's history. And I'm going to tell you something, Charles. I always had a right to exercise my freedom of speech. This man should not have been physically harmed, but I would want to wait to see the videos. That's why the police came out to the public and said two things that were important that I listened to. One, that the alleged perpetrator stayed. He called 911. He fully cooperated with everything they asked him to do, and he believes that it was self-defense. Also, they said, they asked the public, is there anybody with video? So if you have it, please send it in. So obviously, There's no factual proof outside of eyewitnesses from both sides, and they're both supporting both opposite men here, one dead, one alive, about what took place. Charles, it's wrong that he died, Charles, but listen, people die in hostile protesters in America's history all the time. This is nothing new. You had a young Caucasian white girl who was ran over and killed at a protest just a couple of years ago.
You're right. And
right
that guy's,
here,
and that
right
guy,
in America.
And that guy's
he went to prison.
In Charlottesville. He's going to die
he went to
in
prison. But Charles.
And everybody called it murder right away.
But Charles, at the same time, we have had cases in America like the Watts riot where people died, both black and white. It's wrong that people are being harmed like that, people are being killed, but it's not the first time it's happening in America's history.
Okay, well, that's great. What aboutism?
Charles,
but how does
we
that
don't
make
have
it
any
not
proof
murder?
that he's guilty.
Okay.
What proof do we have? There's no video, Charles.
Well, you don't have to have
and
video.
And he's innocent until proven guilty,
okay,
Charles.
But that's in a court of law, not in people talking. So if the Israeli protesters were on one side of the street and the Palestinian protesters were on the other side of the street, and the Palestinian protester crossed the street with a bullhorn and got in a guy's face and followed him around with that bullhorn, do you think he's the instigator or the other guy?
If that's exactly how it went, then he was the instigator, yes.
And then it's murder,
But
right?
we don't know
then
for a fact. Right? Not yet. It's not murder yet.
Okay.
Just because you go and instigate a fight and harass somebody does not justify them killing you. Now, if he hit him first.
It's the opposite.
If he hit him
it was
first
the instigator
and he
that
himself,
killed the old man.
But Charles, we don't know this to be facts. There is no video. That's why law enforcement is asking for video, Charles.
You assume things occur.
But you assuming too.
But you do this for a living, Quanell. Every time a white
and as
cop,
a lawyer, you don't.
Every time,
as a lawyer, you don't. You defend criminals, but you don't.
If there's any allegation that a white cop did something wrong, you are out there with a microphone in your face condemning all white cops and condemning everybody, and you ain't seen nothing, right?
You're wrong about that. You're wrong about that.
Oh, no, really? I mean,
Charles,
we've known each other a long
Charles,
time.
I have learned. Let me tell you something,
That's the business you're in.
Charles, I have learned you cannot trust what everybody tell you. I have learned from police officers who were accused of committing crimes and doing things wrong that the people who came to us, who claimed to be eyewitnesses, were absolutely lying. There was a killing right there in Southeast Houston in Sunnyside, a pastor's wife who claimed she was the eyewitness and said everything that took place about what the cop did, how the young man was not resisting, how he was handcuffed and shot. She lied. So don't tell me I don't realize this. She lied, and we all went out to the public. We all went out to the public and said things publicly that were not true. That's why I'm saying now, let's reserve judgment until we get this information.
Do you think it was a young Jewish man that took a bullhorn across the street to Palestinians, got in their face, and then bashed an elderly Palestinian man in the head? He fell down and died in America. Do you think the headlines would be the same?
Depending on who's telling the story.
Okay.
To be honest with you.
But the mainstream
media. Those who are pro-Palestine, they'll see it one way. Those who are pro-Israel would spin it a different way.
The mainstream media basically has decided that Israel is bad, the Jews are bad. Anti-Semitism is all over this country, right?
Everybody's saying the mainstream media is supporting Israel.
Well, on what
and
planet?
not giving the Palestinians the same level of attention.
I will tell you this was murder. The media should be calling this murder. They should just stop trying to paint a nice portrait, just like you did.
You need something to back up that charge.
He tried to help him after he smashed him in the face and knocked him to the ground.
He didn't run.
Yeah, because he knew nothing was going to happen.
He called 911.
In the lawless, disgusting
and he stayed there and tried to help the man.
That is Los Angeles.
And he tried to help the man.
And if it was flipped, if it was the white man that killed the Middle Eastern man, he'd already be in jail.
I think you're trying to spin a narrative that fits your desire.
I'm not spinning. Murder is murder, Quanell.
Ladies and gentlemen, let me say this to the listening audience and to the viewing public. America now is at a crossroads. Either we're all going to come together to save this nation and make it better, or we're going to allow political differences, political parties, politicians, and the super rich to further divide us, and we're going to beat each other's throats, and we're going to strain a net while we swallow a camel. Only a fool fights in a burning house. Our nation is on fire. And I don't care what your race is, we all live in this house. We need to go to work to do something to bring peace in this country. Because if we don't, we're all willing participants in the self-destruction of our own home, which we call America. We only have one nation. Now, to our military veterans, you deserve better if you're going to be honored than a free lap dance. You deserve proper health care treatment. You deserve resources. You deserve that the Veterans Administration, the VA's hospital, treat you like human beings when you serve. So if this strip club really want to do something to help you, they could have took that money and give it to wounded soldiers. They could have took and made money that night and donated it to their wives and widows.
All right, first we'll start with Crazy Horse 3. The strip club offering to do something, anything, for veterans on Veterans Day. I applaud you. I applaud every business, and they are in the business of lap dances. That's what they do. There are so many businesses and so many people in America that don't give a damn about people that have served this country in a variety of capacities. In fact, it's getting to the point where it reflects the 1970s, where men that were drafted and forced to go fight in Vietnam came back to people spitting on them and yelling at them. And I support everyone that supports public service. And I'll tell you, you shouldn't judge how anyone does charity. You should just support the concept of charity. Now let's talk about the manifesto. I've always been shocked by the portions of critical race theory. Some of them are absolutely on point. You know, the systemic abuses of black people in America through our criminal justice system requires paradigmatic change. And I've been talking about this and been a police reformist for decades, right? But the part of critical race theory that says all white people are racist and that says all white people are privileged uses the same racial math that racist white people use and say all black people are this or all black people are that. And we need to stop condemning people based on the color of their damn skin.